What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the program on tonight. Tyrone Bowman live. Global news. There are a lot of news stories I'm going to be talking about, so I'm not going to waste any time. We're going to get right down to it. As always, there's a lot happening in the nation and around the world. Things and stories that we should be privy to and things that we should know about. Let's talk about up first an article written in the Washington Post about how the IRS improperly disclosed confidential immigrant tax data to the Department of Homeland Security. This article for the Washington Post was written by Jacob Bogage and Jeff Stein and Perry Stein. According to the Washington Post, the Internal Revenue Service improperly shared confidential tax information of thousands of individuals with immigration enforcement officials, according to three people with the situation, according to a breach a legal firewall intended to protect taxpayer data. The erroneous disclosure was only recently discovered. The people said the IRS is working with officials from the Treasury Department, Justice Department, and Department of Homeland Security on the administration's response. The IRS confirmed the Washington Post reporting. In a court filing Wednesday afternoon, Dottie Romo, the tax agency's chief's risk and control officer, wrote in a sworn declaration that the IRS provided confidential taxpayer information even when DHS officials could not provide significant data to positively identify a specific individual. Federal law mandates strict protections of the identities of taxpayers, including the sharing of data within the federal government. Undocumented immigration have for years paid taxes with, undocumented immigrants for years have paid taxes with assurances from the federal government that doing so would not result in them being targeted by immigration enforcement. Let me make sure we got everything covered here before I get started on tonight. Pardon me, I got to check something out real quick. Okay, we're good. Let's continue. So they agreed to pay taxes for years with assurances from the federal government that doing so would not result in them being targeted by immigration enforcement. But in a controversial decision, Treasury, which oversees the IRS, in April agreed to provide DHS with the names and addresses of individuals the Trump administration believed to be in the country illegally pursuant to DHS request. Federal courts have since blocked the data sharing arrangement, holding that it violates taxpayers' rights, though the government appealed those rulings. Before the agreement was struck down, DHS requested the addresses of 1.2 million individuals from the IRS. The tax agency responded with data on 47,000 individuals, according to court records. When the IRS shared the addresses with DHS, it also inadvertently disclosed private information for thousands of taxpayers erroneously. A mistake only recently discovered, said the people familiar who spoke on the condition of anonymity for the fear of retribution. Romo, in her declaration, did not state when the IRS learned of its error. She said the agency notified DHS on January 23rd to begin taking steps to prevent the disclosure of dissemination and to ensure appropriate disposal of any data provided to ICE by IRS based on incomplete or insufficient address information, quote, close quote. She declines to state if the IRS would inform people whose data was illegally disclosed to immigration officials, and said DHS and ICE have agreed to not inspect, view, use, copy, distribute, rely on, or otherwise act on any return information that has been obtained from or disclosed by IRS because of the pending litigation. The affected individuals could be entitled to financial compensation for each time their information was improperly shared, and government officials can personally face civil and criminal penalties for sharing confidential tax information. The Attorney General Pam Bondi, she defended the Epstein files released in a combative hearing, an article by Sadie Gurman for the Wall Street Journal. Let me talk about this real quick here. Attorney General Pam Bondi defended the Justice Department's release of files from the Jeffrey Epstein investigation during a fiery congressional hearing in which she traded barbs with Democrats, praised Trump, and declined to apologize directly to a group of the convicted sex offenders victims seated behind her. See, this is going to be the problem. There are real victims of the atrocities of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And these individuals are being ignored, they're being eviscerated, they are being targeted in some instances because they refuse to go quietly into that long, good night. Now, when individuals are accused of, in many instances, rightfully so, but in some instances falsely, of committing sexual crimes, they automatically make sure that they destroy the person or persons who committed the alleged offenses. There's no shielding, there's no protecting, there is no guessing. Why would the Attorney General even go before the congressional hearings when they automatically know she is not going to be cooperative in any way? She might as well just pled the Fifth Amendment, because there's no way in the world they're going to get Trump's Attorney General to agree with anything that they say. It's not going to happen. Her appearance today before the House Judiciary Committee got off to a tense start when Democrats blasted the department's redactions of material in the released Epstein files, which revealed photos and intimate details about numerous victims while keeping some prominent names secret. Your department has shown a pattern of redacting the names of powerful predators. Representative Familia Japaya, a Democrat from Washington, said, asking the victims seated behind Bondi to raise their hands if they had been unable to meet with the Justice Department to discuss their concerns. All 11 did. Will you turn to them now and apologize for what the Department of Justice has put them through? I'm not going to get in the gutter for this woman, Bondi replied. So basically, they don't care anything about these women, the alleged victims of Jeffrey Epstein. Her response is, I'm not going to get in the gutter for these women. As you can see, here's a picture of a stoic Pam Bondi as she's before the Senate Judiciary Committee. The dramatic exchange set the tone for the rest of the hearing, with Bondi and her Democratic questioners frequently interrupting each other with shouts and recriminations. She accused lawmakers of trying to engage in theatrics and directed potential criticism at those challenging the Trump administration's actions, including its immigration crackdown and investigations into a pair of deadly shootings by federal agents. You sit here and attack the president, and I am not going to have it. I'm not going to put up with it, launching into an animated soliloquy in defense of Trump, even touting the performance of the stock market during his presidency. What the heck does this have to do with the Jeffrey Epstein files? And the Democrats, mark my word, if they win the Congress and win the Senate, heads are going to roll. It's going to be an all-out war. According to CBS News, the Congressional House votes to rescind Trump's Canada tariffs, with 6 Republicans joining Democrats. This is what you're beginning to call cracks in the ceiling. An article written by Caitlin Yalink for CBS News. The House voted on today to overturn President Trump's tariffs on Canada after 6 Republicans sided with nearly all Democrats to rebuke one pillar of the president's trade agenda. The Democratic measure to roll back the levies passed in a 219 to 211 vote. However, the resolution's passage is largely symbolic, since it could be vetoed by the president if it clears the Senate, which it will. It will clear the Senate and it will be vetoed. And it did not pass the House with a veto-proof majority. The upper chamber voted twice last year to block Mr. Trump from imposing tariffs on Canada, with 4 Republicans joining Democrats to approve the measures. Its passage comes after GOP reps Kevin Connolly of California, Thomas Massie of Kentucky, Don Bacon of Nebraska voted with Democrats on Tuesday to sink a procedural vote that would have barred lawmakers from overturning the president's sweeping tariffs through July. For months, House GOP leaders have blocked lawmakers from forcing votes on Mr. Trump's tariff authority, but the ban on challenging the levies expires in January. Republican reps Dan Newhouse of Washington, Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, Jeff Hurd of Colorado, Colley, Massey, and Bacon broke with the president today on an issue that could have political ramifications in the November midterm elections. Poll after poll has shown that Americans largely disapprove of the sweeping tariffs. Tyrone Bowman Live. Be right back. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm doing on my platform, I am bringing information from so many different sources. On tomorrow, I'll be exclusively reporting from the Wall Street Journal, which is going to have massive information about many things that are going on in the nation, the country, and around the world, because the Wall Street Journal, it takes it from a different perspective. So if you like Tyrone Bowman Live Global News, kindly subscribe to the channel. We would appreciate it very much. According to Fox News, James Van Der Beek, Dawson's Creek and Varsity Blues star, is dead at the age of 48. James Van Der Beek, best known for his starring roles in Dawson's Creek and Varsity Blues, has died after a courageous battle with stage 3 colorectal cancer. He was 48 years of age. Quote, our beloved James David Van Der Beek passed peacefully this morning. A statement read from Van Der Beek's official Instagram account. He met his final days with courage, faith, and grace. There is much to share regarding his wishes, love for humanity, and the sacredness of time. Those days will come. For now, we ask for peaceful privacy as we grieve our loving husband, father, son, brother, and friend. Shortly after the news broke, close friends of Van Der Beek and his wife, Kimberly, launched a GoFundMe in an effort to support the 44-year-old and their 6 children. Throughout life, James's illness, the family faced not only emotional challenges, but also significant financial strain as they did everything possible to support James and provide for his care, the GoFundMe page read. Moving on to another story here. In Philadelphia, according to the Philadelphia Inquirer, the city spent millions to grow one anti-violence nonprofit. Instead, it nearly imploded. NOMO received more than, or NOMO, received more than $6 million in public funds in recent years, but faced an IRS lien and eviction lawsuits. It was forced to close its housing program less than 3 years after it was launched. This article was written for the Philadelphia Inquirer by Ryan Briggs and Samantha Milami. Oh, me lamed. My bad. Philadelphia state officials awarded more than $6 million in taxpayer funds over the last 5 years to a politically concerned but financially unstable anti-violence nonprofit, despite repeated warnings from city grant managers about improper spending and mismanagement. An Inquirer investigation has found the group, New Options, More Opportunities, or NOMO Foundation, received city and state and anti-violent grants and locally administered federal dollars to expand its youth programs and launched a new affordable housing program. The money fueled NOMO's rapid rise from a small grassroots outfit into a sprawling nonprofit that took on expenses it ultimately couldn't afford. Mayor Sherelle L. Parker has publicly touted NOMO's work in the community, and she further boosted its profile by naming its director to her transition team upon taking office. Behind the scenes, Parker administration staffers watched NOMO face mounting financial pressures over the last 2 years. In that time, the organization has been hit with multiple eviction filings and an IRS tax lien, and had to lay off staff and suspended programming. Most significantly, NOMO had to terminate its housing initiative last year, displacing all 23 low-income households that had in its tenant. The warning signs were evident years earlier. Records obtained under Pennsylvania's right to know law show that city grant managers expressed concerns as far back as 2021 about NOMO's lack of financial controls, incomplete balance sheets, and chronic inability to provide basic documents. As recently as last year, the city was unaware who sat on the group's board. Yet records show city officials kept propping up the group with more funds without successfully putting in place the kind of structural support that it might have kept it from floundering. Last year, the city sought to award a $700,000 federal homelessness prevention contract to NOMO, but the nonprofit was unable to meet the conditions of the contract and the funds were never dispersed. Officials also proposed writing more funding to NOMO into last year's city budget as a last-minute line item. The effort failed. In a September interview, NOMO Executive Director Ricky Duncan blamed city officials for funding delays. Quote, "I was breaking my back to make sure those young people were getting housed." Duncan said, "We built a tab that was so big we couldn't pay no more because the city didn't pay." Much of the money awarded to NOMO came via Philadelphia's Community Expansion Grant program, launched in 2021 to respond to record gun violence and support alternatives to policing. NOMO was one of only two initial guarantees to receive the maximum $1 million award, which was meant to help the group scale up its operations and serve more at-risk youth. A series of Inquirer investigations has shown that the CEG program's politicized selection process awarded grants to fledgling nonprofits, sometimes ill-equipped to manage the funds. I got to take a quick break. Tyrone Bowman live. All right, let's get back. Let's get back to NOMO in Philadelphia and the financial problems that they were having. Well, you know what? This is not something that can't be corrected. It could just be a matter of mismanagement, not good bookkeeping, and there doesn't seem to be any impropriety here that's going on. So, even though the Inquirer investigated several things and has shown that the organization, the city controller in 2024, corroborated many of the Inquirer's findings, and late last year, the district attorney's office charged 9 police officers with conspiracy and theft of SEG funds. What the Sam Hill? Cops steal money from a nonprofit organization that's meant to help people who are living in poverty. See what happens, ladies and gentlemen? You put some of them in authority, and they're the ones breaking the laws. NOMO's financial records detail spending that quickly led to trouble after it received the first city grant, starting with the decision to devote most of the funds to launching a costly housing initiative while opening sprawling new youth centers to expand its after-school programs to new neighborhoods. Duncan signed annual billing leases totaling $750,000 and increased his own salary from $48,000 in 2021 to $144,000 the next year. Duncan said that his pay, now $165,000 according to the most recent tax filing, is below average for an organization of NOMO's size and was previously lower because he was volunteering half his time. The records contain no evidence that city grant managers questioned the lease expenses or conducted an evaluation of whether the Upstart housing program was an appropriate addition to the organization's core mission of offering after-school programming. By the start of last year, a tax lien and lawsuits over unpaid rent threatened NOMO's existence. Still, Duncan asked the city in January 2025 to reimburse the roughly $9,000 cost of 2 Sixers season tickets he purchased a year earlier. Dude, you cannot take money from a nonprofit organization and buy Sixers season tickets with it. You don't do that. People go to jail for misappropriation of public money and public trust. That's what the board of directors is for. They're supposed to keep the executive director in check, and that's what a comptroller and the CPA is for in a nonprofit organization, to make sure that the books are balanced at all times. Just because a person is a founder of an organization, an executive director, doesn't mean that they can just be willy-nilly and go back and do anything. Yeah, we're back. I like that. You've got to follow the law. Seriously. Come on now. Seasons tickets to the Sixers are not an acceptable problematic expense, the grant program manager responded in an email. Records show that city officials discovered in April that a $35,000 IRS lien filed 4 months earlier had rendered NOMO ineligible for grant funding. Grant administrators sent an email to NOMO staffers with a warning written in all caps, quote, "Cease all spending," end quote. Duncan said the lien was the result of a missing signature on a tax form and that it was eventually resolved at no cost, but in a June email to Public Safety Director Adam Gier and other city officials, he accused the city of pushing his organization to the brink of collapse. Listen up, black people. Somebody just got to say it. When you are a black man in America and you are running an organization, what if you're entertaining a client? Can you buy tickets? I don't really know. I'd have to research it. If you are a black man or black woman running a nonprofit organization in white America, you're going to be held to a much higher standard than the rest of them. You're going to be closely monitored, closely watched, because they're going to be extremely skeptical of why you are spearheading such an organization and doing the good that you're doing. And you know you're going to be scrutinized at any given point and any given time. Years ago in the city of Philadelphia, there was a woman who was feeding the homeless and doing all that she could, raising public funds and feeding them, clothing them, and sheltering them, but she was not a great bookkeeper. And they eviscerated her in the press. They crucified her in the press. They tried to destroy her because as the founder of her organization, she was primarily concentrated on feeding, clothing, and sheltering the homeless. Those who attended to the administrative aspect of an organization should have made sure everything was running smoothly. Quote, watch this. This is a letter that was written to Public Safety Director Adam Gier and other city officials. I am deeply respectfully requesting a written response dealing how a tax lien escalated into a comprehensive investigation into the Nomo Foundation's financial health. Duncan wrote, Nomo has been disrespected, attacked, and harassed by members of this office on this and previous occasions. The funding was eventually restored last August. That goes exactly to the point that I made a few seconds ago. Skepticism. Skepticism. And they had to return the funding because there wasn't any propriety of criminality found whatsoever. Quote, can I buy a Cybertruck? Man, Duncan and his nonprofit have maintained support from the city's top elected leaders. Parker name-checked Nomo in her first ever budget address, and City Council President Kenyatta Johnson appointed Duncan last year to an anti-violence task force. In a statement responding to the inquirer's finding, Johnson praised Nomo and credited the organization with, quote, working with children throughout Philadelphia, intervening in cycles of violence, and literally saving lives in our community. Johnson, who was listed as a reference on the group's most recent grant application, added, regarding any allegations raised against Mr. Duncan and Nomo, I am confident that the City of Philadelphia's Office of Public Safety will review these matters thoroughly, fairly, and professionally. It is crucial that any concerns are taken seriously and examined through the proper channels with facts guiding the outcome. A spokesperson for the Parker referred questions to the city's Office of Public Safety, which manages SEG grants. Well, this is a pretty lengthy story, and I don't want to go on and on and on with it. The young man is doing phenomenal work in the city of Philadelphia, and we want his work to be able to continue. I saw an article earlier here. Let me see if I can find it. It has to do with ICE guards being arrested. You know, some of the stuff that these people do, and people wonder why I have to address them. New evidence shows Gregory Bonvino hailed the agent who fired at Martinez 5 times in her car as a hero. New release evidence has shown that Gregory Bonvino, a Border Patrol chief who was the face of the Trump administration's mass deportation efforts until last month, praised a federal agent who shot a Chicago woman during the immigration crackdown last year. Marimar Martinez, a U.S. citizen, was shot 5 times by a Border Patrol agent in October while in her vehicle. She was charged with a felony after officials at DHS accused her of trying to ram agents with her vehicle, but the case was abruptly dismissed after video evidence emerged showing that an agent had steered his car into Martinez's car. These agents are told to incite and cause pandemonium, mayhem, and confusion, and to make it appear like they're being attacked. They incite people. Someone says I'm back if you want to take a break. I'm going to have to take a break in about 5 minutes. You know what, this story, listen, you better listen to me before. Let me speak extemporaneously for a minute. There it is. Takeaways from AP's review of recent criminal cases against ICE employees and contractors. I'll read that after the break. If you play all summer long and you take the upcoming midterm elections lightly, you're going to wake up the day after the same way you did after the 2024 presidential election, and you're going to be pissed. You're going to be shocked. and you're going to be confused all over again. And if you think that the rigged right, the racist right, is playing a game, you're totally wrong. These people are not playing, they're serious about maintaining and keeping power. They're serious about turning back the hands of time. They're serious about keeping the rich richer and the poor poor. There is so much that goes on behind the scenes until people don't even know what's happening and know what's going on because they're constantly dangling a carrot in front of you. And then with their right hand, they're causing all kinds of heartache and pain and pandemonium and trouble. This is not a game. This is not a joke. You better take this thing very, very seriously. I'm thinking right now about look at the farmers and the price that they are paying due to their own detriment of voting for all the things that are happening and going on in this country right now because they didn't think it would affect them. They did not think that their crops would just go rotting. They did not think that their workers were going to be swept up and attacked and criminalized. They didn't think nothing would happen to them. They only thought it was going to happen to people that didn't look like them. That was the consensus. We put our man back in the White House and everything is gravy for us and we get to do whatever we want to do because we're going to make plenty of money. But it's not working out like that. There's a lot on the table as we go into the midterm elections. There's a lot at stake. There's a lot on the table. The midterm elections that are coming up are extremely serious. There's going to be a lot of fundraising from the Republicans, the racist Republicans. They're going to inundate your mailboxes. You're going to have robocalls like never before, fundraising appeals like never before, and the verbiage is just going to be nonstop attack verbiage. I got a video from Senator John Ossoff that I'm going to play a little later on. So I want you all to see the seriousness of what is at stake. It's not a game. It's not a joke. And I'm going to go on record and say that we have not seen the last of Kamala Harris. She's going to rebound. And she's going to come back bigger and better than ever. And when you look at her, you're going to be able to tell that she's not coming to play. So I ask you a question as I go to break. What are you going to do to make a difference in your city, in your town, and in the upcoming midterm elections? This is Tyrone Bowman Live, Global News. If you like this channel, if you like the stories I'm talking about and doing, kindly like and share the video with others so they too can, and kindly subscribe to the channel. Would appreciate it. If you'd like to support the channel, the information about the Cash App is already up on the screen. Piexel number 4. All right, I'll be right back right after this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Tyrone Bowman, Live Global News. I had to take an extended break to handle some administrative matters. Before I left for the break, I want to talk about the takeaways from the Associated Press's review of the recent criminal cases against ICE employees and contractors. So, what's going on with this? Well, let's find out. According to Associated Press News or APNnews.com, this article was written by Ryan J. Foley. At least 24 U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement employees and contractors have been charged with crimes since 2020. And the wrongdoing includes patterns of physical and sexual abuse, corruption, and other misuses of authority, a review by the Associated Press found. While most cases happened before Congress voted last year to give ICE $75 billion to hire more agents and detain more people, experts say such crimes could accelerate given the volume of new employees and their empowerment to use aggressive tactics to deport people. Almost everywhere, law enforcement agency contends with bad employees, but ICE's rapid growth and mission to deport millions are unprecedented, and the immense power that officers exercise over vulnerable populations can lead to abuses. Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said that wrongdoing was not widespread in the agency and that ICE takes allegations of misconduct by its employees extremely seriously. I don't know where I've heard this statement many, many times before coming from corporate America. She said that most new hires have worked for other law enforcement agencies and the backgrounds are thoroughly vetted. Okay. Yeah, we talk about America is very, very proud of all the work that ICE is doing. I'm not going to read any more of that article. All right, but I am going to talk about how the Nicaraguan government blocks key pathways that are used by Cuban immigrants to reach the United States. This is coming out of Mexico City. Megan Jutrisky wrote this article. Nicaragua's government on Sunday blocked Cuban citizens from entering the country without a visa, effectively cutting off a key route for Cuban migration to the United States at a time when the Trump administration has put the Caribbean island in an economic chokehold. Nicaragua's government confirmed to the Associated Press that it suspended an exemption that allows Cubans to enter the Central American nation without a visa. The move could effectively cut off Cubans from a country that has long acted as a bridge for Caribbean migrants traveling to the U.S. for years. Cuban migrants would fly to Nicaragua and meet up with smugglers who would help them migrate north through Central America and Mexico to get to the U.S. border. Well, you got to understand that America has a great interest in Nicaragua, and they have forged an alliance with the new president in Nicaragua. So that leaves Cuba out of the loop for illegal migration. Experts say Nicaragua kept its doors open to people from countries like Cuba and Haiti in a move to weaponize migrants fleeing turmoil against its longtime adversary, the U.S. But the change comes amid mounting pressure by Trump administration on Latin American nations to fall in line with its vision for the hemisphere, particularly on issues like migration and security. After a U.S. military operation deposed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in January, the Trump administration began to step up pressure, particularly on adversary governments like Cuba and Nicaragua, and Maduro is in a federal prison awaiting trial. At the end of January, President Trump threatened to impose tariffs on countries that provide oil to Cuba, thrusting the island into an even deepened economic and energy crisis that's likely to fuel even more migration from a nation that has seen record numbers of people leaving in recent years. I will keep you posted on this story and you'll be able to hear for yourself as to what's going on. All right, what else do we have here? I would like to go over to Canada. Now, actually, I would like to go to Jamaica. That's where I'm headed now. I want to talk about some real news coming from Jamaica. I don't want to talk about Jamaican sports either. All right, let me see what we have here coming from Jamaica tonight. I don't want to do any sports right now. Well, did you hear that Britney Spears has sold the rights to her entire music catalog? What is going on with Ms. Britney Spears? She has sold everything. Wow. Now that comes as a very, very unusual surprise to me. Okay, there's a huge protest going on with Jewish leaders in Washington, D.C., saying that ISIS actions are an affront to God. According to Sarah D. Wire for USA Today, more than 150 rabbis and cantors protested outside the Immigration and Customs Enforcement headquarters in Washington, D.C. on today in what organizers said was the largest all-Jewish protest of the Trump administration's immigration enforcement surge. Quote, I will not stand on the blood of my neighbor. I will not stand idly by, end quote, they sang in English and Hebrew, referencing a biblical passage. The hundreds of rabbis, cantors, and other Jews waved signs stating resisting tyranny since Pharaoh and looking more like Nazi Germany every day as they protested the government's mass arrest and removal of immigrants. Quote, it's time the Jewish community has got to stand up and say, you know what? What's going on is not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. It does not comport with Jewish values, said Sol Glassner, 74 of Chevy Chase, Maryland. I'm delighted to see so many Jews come out and express themselves as Jews, specifically as Jews. We're Jewish Americans. We're concerned as Americans, and we're concerned as Jews. Beth Rubin, who is 67, says she drove 6 hours from Raleigh, North Carolina to attend because she sees ICE on a path toward what her family fled in the 1930s. Quote, we lost 17 people in different concentration camps. What is happening today to immigrants, to citizens, to innocent people, and to people who have overstayed their visas, to the undocumented and the documented is very similar to what happened then. Now, what are they going to say to the Jewish people who are now beginning to protest as well? Are they going to appear to be unpatriotic? Are they going to insult them? Are they going to call them all kind of names like they do everybody else? Are they going to ram the cars and trucks into them and say that they're instigators? I told you before, and I'm going to tell you again. If the balance of power does not change with Congress and the Senate, the carnage and the violence that we have seen is nothing in comparison to what is to come. Right now, they're trying to put a lid on it because of the upcoming midterm elections. But if McCarthy, not McCarthy, but somewhat like McCarthyism, if Johnson holds on to power and remains the majority as Speaker of the House, if these people continue to take control of the Senate and of the Congress, they're going to rubber stamp everything that comes down the pike for the next 2 years. And it won't be pretty. The economy will suffer greatly. Medicaid, Medicare, gas prices, food prices. The farming industry will basically become totally devastated. Agriculture will become dead. You know, the agriculture industry will go dead. And if you don't think farmers are important, and if you don't think the agricultural industry is important, let the farmers continue to suffer and watch what happens. There will come a famine in the land, like the proportion, like you've never seen before. And if you don't think it happened before, go back to the latter portion of the 1920s into the 30s. They call it the Great Depression. No, it was a plague. It was a famine in America. America, I don't want to read through any more scripts now. America has suffered all types of atrocities down through its history. And America has got to come to the consensus for the betterment of all. It's called the United States of America for a reason. There's strength in unity. There is division in disunity. There's empowerment in numbers. The least with one voice of their own don't have a voice, but when they collectively unite together as one united front, that one voice becomes a powerful voice. And if you don't think politicians pay attention to polls, and if you don't think they pay attention to the populace of the people, and if you don't think that they don't want to be loved, adored, and worshiped, when people begin to turn against politicians, they don't know what to do. America's problem is this. You have put your faith and trust in politicians instead of a divine deity. You put your trust in your preachers. You put your trust in your pastors. You put your trust in your rabbis. You put your trust in your priests. You put your trust in your politicians, and you have forgotten about the Almighty. What does it say on the dollar? In God we trust. What God? What God is America trusted in? Is it the God of greed? The God of wealth? The God of avarice? The God of sex? The God of selfishness? The God of egotism? The God of avarice? What God is America trusting in? You can mandate that America is a Christian nation all you want. America is far from being a Christian nation. America has problems. Midterm elections are coming up. Question is, how are you going to handle them? On tomorrow's program, I am going to cover a lot of territory, and I'll probably get started at a much earlier hour tomorrow, because I'll probably have a prolonged broadcast, because after Thursday, I will not be broadcasting anymore until Sunday. So the broadcast will be much more prolonged tomorrow without any breaks in between. So I've got a lot of territory to cover, a lot of issues that must be discussed because it's vitally important that individuals are well informed as to what's happening in your neighborhood, what's happening in your vicinity, what's happening in the nation's capital, but even locally, what's happening. We should be informed. what's happening within our local vicinity. Can I ask you a question tonight? And be honest. Is the complexity of your neighborhood changing? You see new businesses popping up every day? Has gentrification come to your neck of the woods? Have the taxes increased? Have your taxes increased? Be truthful. Or is the value of your property increasing or decreasing? What about your school taxes? What about that mortgage that they said was a fixed mortgage? Is that now become a floating mortgage? What about your credit cards? Are you using your credit cards to pay off one debt after another? Because your savings, your nest egg that you had, you see it dwindling almost down to nothing? Do you see scarcity in your home? Are you better off now than you thought you were going to be? Are you having a hard time making quote unquote ends meet? Is your job telling you that you got to work more hours, work more shifts because of massive layoffs, but they don't want to increase your pay, but they want you to do more on your job and pay you the same amount of money? No overtime. Most jobs are eradicating and getting rid of overtime. You know what the new overtime is? Sick time. That's the new overtime. The new overtime is sick time, ladies and gentlemen, because they don't want to pay you overtime. And if you don't have enough sick time, they still want you to come in. How many people right now are working in a sickly state? You don't feel like going to work. You're tired. You're worn out. You're exhausted. How many of you are arguing over money every night? And the only person you can take your rage and anger and dissatisfaction out on is the people who live in your house or who are in your circle, because you can't take it out on your boss. So you call it venting. It's not venting. You're taking it out on them. Vicariously, you're making them pay the price. See, you look at them as your boss. And it's not about the chicken. It's not about the dishes not being washed. It's not about the children making too much noise. It's not about the video games. It's about the lack of money. That's what it's about. The lack of money. Not being able to pay every bill on time. I know a lot of people who go to food pantries, ladies and gentlemen. I see them lined up all the time in my neighborhood. Black people, white people, Italian people, Mexican people, Latino people, Chinese people, Asian people, Japanese people, Russians, Jewish people. I see them lined up in my neighborhood. And they come out early and stand in frigid cold weather, and they're grateful for the food box they get. After they leave that place, they go to another, and then to another. What we are living through, what we are experiencing is real. There is no psychosomaticism here. It is real. The depression is real. The recession is real. The inflation is real. Medicaid, Medicare prices is real. Seniors not getting the adequate health care and needs that they need is real. Young people, quote unquote, being out of control is all too real. And they're losing themselves. Young men and women who you think are highly intelligent are very immature on the inside of their spirit. They may be great academically and scholastically, but the immaturity level is at an all-time high, because they'll get great straight A's and have a great GPA, then do something stupid like go out with their friends knowing they got guns in the back of the car and they smoking weed and get stopped by the cops and wonder why the cops stopped the car. Look at the Villanova football player. I'm going to talk about him, the ex-football player now, who's a freshman, who is probably going to go to prison for the rest of his life for SAing someone in his dorm, thinking he could get away with it. Now that's going to be a massive lawsuit against Villanova University because the parents of the victim, God knows what she's dealing with mentally and psychologically. And this really happened. She didn't cry wolf. This really happened to her. And everything that's going to happen to him, he's got it coming because he did it. And then he tried to cover it up. So, a lot more stories I'll be talking about on tomorrow. These are some of the thoughts that are on my mind, ladies and gentlemen. On Tyrone Bowman Live, this is an open forum on this platform. I want you to know that. Everyone is welcome over here. Everybody. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Black, White, Jewish, Gentile, Muslims, male, female, everybody's welcome to this channel. And I would love to have conversations with some of the movers and the shakers. But see, they don't like to be interviewed because they want to try to control the narrative. They want to control the conversation because they got their talking points and lies already prepared. And they want the interviewer to ask prepared questions, and I don't roll like that. We're going to either have a real conversation or no conversation at all. I don't need your PR person trying to talk to me. I don't need your little staffer that you underpaid trying to talk to me. I don't need nobody handing me a piece of paper with 5 questions telling me I can only ask 2. You got the wrong brother. We don't do that over here. You'll be treated fairly, but you got to treat me fairly too. It's called mutual respect. America's got to come back from everything we're going through. All right, let me read this last comment. Good or bad? Wow. Quote, we pay $1,700 a year on 200 acres. It sucks that the land is paid for and every year taxes are due. Oh, wow. Mutual respect, quote unquote. All right, y'all. I appreciate every one of y'all. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Pardon the various breaks I've had to take up because I got a lot going on. One day, when I take a break, I'm going to take y'all into the studio. I'll let you all see what I do. Is that fair enough? I'll take my my phone with me, and I'll take you right into the broadcast studio, and you'll see exactly what I'm doing. Okay, until tomorrow, take care of yourselves. Don't allow hate to consume you because people are hateful. Never surrender. Never quit.